In the early days of the internet, radical libertarians were scattered, lonely, and faceless. Without direction, they resigned to scour the web, sifting through content providers in a wasteland plagued by YouTube demonetization, Facebook jail, and covert internet censorship. But then, in 2017, the Libertarian Union was formed. Finally, the average Joe libertarian could find a thriving community of independent podcasters and content providers, all in one convenient location. At Libertarian Union, we'll always have the latest news, interviews, discussions, and even movie reviews. With hundreds of episodes and more added all the time, you'll always find something fresh at libertarianunion.com.
Hey everyone, it's Daniel Elwood and Robert Johnson, The Last Nighters, and The Last Nighters is part of the Launchpad Media, where they're always launching new ideas in your direction. You can find this show and more other great shows at thelaunchpadmedia.com. This episode is a Choose Your Own Adventure episode. We were going to do the Smallfoot, but we were presented two options and we were too late in selecting, and so it defaulted to what we're going to do tonight, which is Black Mirror Bandersnatch, the Netflix Choose Your Own Adventure, as episode 54 of the Last Nighters podcast. You can find the show notes and more at lastnighters.com/54. Also, you can find us on the old Patreons if you like the work that we do here and you want to support us in some way. We have live streams that you can get access to at various levels. Also, some behind-the-scenes content and other various prizes, such as a personal conversation with my co-host, Robert Johnson. How are you, Robert?
Are you serious?
I just threw that one out there.
All I got to do is donate?
Yeah, you can talk to yourself because time is a construct, my man.
Well, Bandersnatches get stitches. I don't know what Bandersnatches get. I guess we'll have to find out.
All I can say is it's program and control. And we're going to get weird tonight. We're going to get so weird. Robert and I both watched this last night. And I don't know if do we want to give kind of the premise to everyone before we get in the Google description and everything?
Yeah, we got to tell people what it's about.
All right, so this was recommended as a backup to our original plan. Smallfoot, we will do next week with our guest Rocky Fahrenberg. But tonight, it's this Netflix Bandersnatch. And this is the world's first fully interactive. Is it a movie? It gives you various selection points. Some seem very innocuous and almost pointless, and others are like, hey, kill your dad. And it gets really bizarre. And it acts like a choose your own adventure novel, if you guys remember those from when you were younger. I had a few of those, and I remember reading the different storylines and sometimes changing it up and going back and being like, I screwed up. I don't want to do that one. So that's what they attempted to do here. And it gets so hard to follow. I think that this will be a very interesting conversation because Robert and I chose divergent paths intentionally on the very first choice. And I want to see how different our story kind of became. But if you want to round it out and then we'll do the Google description.
Yeah, well, I'm eager to find out. I mean, I haven't talked to anybody else yet that has seen the film, so I don't know how much effect my choices had on the actual end story. It definitely seems to have an effect on the order of presentation that the movie has, but you're presented at various points to go back and choose something else, like the correct path that maybe they're, eventually just steering you all to the same ending. I don't know. Or were there multiple endings? I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I kind of got the same feeling like it was sort of forcing your hand in some way. Like you could sort of maneuver, but then it would funnel you towards the resolution. But we will see. We will. So anyway, this is episode 54. You can find the show notes and more at lastnighters.com/54. And we will be back next week for Smallfoot as episode 55. So without further ado, let's get into this. The Google description, and it lists this as a film, Black Mirror Bandersnatch, 2018 film. 7.5 on the IMDb, 61% Metacritic, 87% Google users like it. The description is very, very brief. It is this. A young programmer starts to question reality when he adapts a mad writer's fantasy novel into a video game. That's it. That's the whole thing. Came out December 28, 2018, so just a few short weeks ago. The director is David Slade, and I think it was written by some Mad Men genius types. At least that's my impression. And it is a Netflix movie that you can't actually watch on the TV. You have to watch it on a device that you can do a selection, right? Like a touch screen. Robert, you ran into that last night, I believe.
Yeah, multiple times. I was very frustrated. It wouldn't work on my phone through the Netflix app. It wouldn't work on my tablet through the Netflix app. It wouldn't work on my laptop through the Netflix app. It wouldn't work on my podcast or streaming it to the TV, to the smart TV through the Netflix app. It finally worked only after opening up a browser on the computer and watching it through that. So whatever, man. I don't know why, but that's the only thing that got to work for me.
Oh, wow. See, I didn't have any of that frustration. We watched it on an iPad and it worked immediately. So that might have colored it for you a little bit versus my experience where it just worked right out of the gate.
You would think, but I really enjoyed this thing. I wouldn't even know if I'd call it a movie. And I would say that it, due to its nature, it kind of suffers narratively due to the fact that, not every single path is going to create the ultimate narrative experience. But as an interactive entertainment piece, it had all kinds of fun things going on. First of all, the setting was super fun. The 80s, and they're making like these old computer games back in the day when like one guy would make an entire game. Now it's getting back to the point where one person can make an entire game again. But, now the software is getting better and whatnot. But back in the day, you would just sit down at an old computer and type it out and program. And you had, like the movie had like 48K to deal with of memory. So you had to get kind of creative in how you presented information and exactly what you could do. So all of that was really fun. And then the rant by the genius programmer guy was a lot of fun, where he gets all conspiratorial and they're all tripping on LSD. And I don't know if you even saw that part, Daniel. I assume you did, but I don't know if you did. And then at one point it gets into a fist fight, which I didn't see coming. And I don't know if I could have seen more fist fights, but I only saw one. But it all turns out to be, the kind of this fun, surreal experience where they become aware, the actors become aware that they are being controlled by the person tapping on the screen in Netflix. So then there's a whole scene where he's like, I'm being controlled by somebody watching Netflix? What the hell is Netflix? This is 1984. I don't even know what that is. There's all kinds of fun stuff. So
spoilers, everyone. Spoilers.
Yeah, it's all spoilers all the time with us. You know how it is.
Yeah, that's right.
But anyway, I want to know what you did. So the very first thing I chose was Sugar Frosted Flakes. And I don't know. Then he got on a bus, and then I chose him to listen to the Thompson Twins versus like Now music.
All right. So let's talk about this. So you said Sugar Flakes or Sugar Puffs? I forget what the selection was. Sugar Puffs was one selection, and then Flakes was the other. But was it Corn Flakes or something like that, or Frosted Flakes?
It was like some generic form of Frosted Flakes.
Okay.
And the only thing that I seem to notice later on in the movie, there was like a TV commercial in the background of a scene that was for Frosted Flakes. And I assume it would have been different if I had chosen the other thing. But that was the only difference that I could see from that choice. Right.
Yeah. So we did the Sugar Puffs. So the very first selection, well, actually the very opening where you first attempt to even watch this thing, it tries to give you instructions, and it explains that this is an interactive episode, and it says, do you understand? And I selected no. And I kept selecting no like 3 times, and then it just like started it anyway.
Nice.
Because I wanted to see, if there's like some kind of an Easter egg, or if it would like never let me in, or eventually acquiesce to it, or do something different. Anyway, but you're right. Yeah.
I heard at one point, or at least multiple points, you could select the same thing multiple times and have something different eventually happen. I don't know if I heard somebody else talking about this, or there was also in the film at one point, the first time he talks to the therapist, she says that, yeah, you could go back to a certain thing multiple times and reveal new information.
I don't know. I haven't programmed that pathway yet.
You ran out of memory?
Ran out of memory. The visual sprites couldn't keep up. So anyway, the first selection, we purposely chose something different than you. So we did Sugar Puffs, you did the Flakes. And then, yeah, he does get on the bus. We selected the Now too. And then it played, is it Annie Lennox, Like Lovers Do? Was that the song that played for you?
No, I got all Thompson Twins, the whole movie, which was great.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty sweet. I enjoyed it.
All right. So, and then later on, we also did see a brief blip of a Sugar Puffs commercial playing on the TV. So I think that was one of the things that made that selection later on, or made that show up later on for us. So essentially we've got this kid who's a programmer. He's got some kind of psychological trauma he's taken pills for. His mother died, and he sort of blames himself and his dad, and so he's got some issues that he's dealing with. And he's also kind of a computer nerd programmer guy who is a really big fan of this game designer Colin Rittman, right? That's the guy's name.
Yeah, it's something like that.
Yeah, and he goes to this company that employs Colin, and it's got like this David Brent style, The Office, David Brent style owner of the company, who's like just kind of over the top, and he's talking about how it's going to be the new Motown.
Yeah,
these video games.
Yeah, he's kind of a excited manager owner guy who's trying to do for the video game industry what Motown was. Like they're going to just be manufacturing hits due to attracting all the genius talent to this one location.
Right, and have them specialize and then cross-pollinate and work on games together. But I don't know if you saw this part, but when they offer Stefan the job there, I accepted. And I was like, yeah, man, let's get this thing off the ground. But then they cut to, very quickly thereafter, some reviewer saying that the game was garbage, like it was designed by committee. And it gave him a terrible review, and it made me restart.
Yeah, I did the exact same thing. I thought, here is a guy offering me resources and collaboration, information. I could learn something.
You're with this hero guy, Colin.
Yeah, you're getting to work with your hero. You got a guy kind of subsidizing this whole effort. Sounds like a great deal to me. But the movie wanted to make some kind of claim about, and they do make a more of a claim later on that designing by committee in terms of this kind of style of game, where this kind of style of game, you need to be like a crazy person and get inside your own head and really be the full-on debutante-like style artist guy, as opposed to kind of like an action shooter thing that can just be designed by committee and it'll turn out just fine. But this is like a piece of art, and this needs the single mind of a focused artist to do.
Right, and that's often an internal struggle, I think, for a lot of people who have difficulty letting go of something that's like their baby. It's their project, and it's hard for them to get it off the ground or get it fully completed. Wink, wink, Robert.
I don't know what you're talking about. I really don't understand what kind of thing you'd be referencing.
Versus having, like a different end product, of course, because you could break off portions of it to specialists in that area. Like in the game company here, they've got graphics specialists, they've got music specialists, audio specialists, effects specialists, and certain things will lend themselves to that, and you're basically taking advantage of the division of labor. But you're right, this one is more of a visionary thing that really needs to be kind of contained or guided by one, what do they call them, evangelical types, like evangelist? Is that what they call it in the tech sector? Like you have an evangelist for a product?
I have no idea. I've never heard that term before in my life. But I did want to mention that the movie kind of craps on as soon as he said yes, the manager guy's like, okay, great. Well, now we need to, make sure it all fits inside this cartridge of 48K or whatever. So we're going to have to cut, some stuff that you, Mr. Unrealistic Artist guy, wants to put in there. And I was like, well, that sounds perfectly reasonable. Sometimes an artist needs to be reined in by a practical person that says, well, let's hold on now. We got deadlines. We gotta produce a product here. Let's be realistic with this thing, and let's try and wrap this up in a decent amount of time.
Right, because we want to get this thing ready by Christmas to be able to actually sell it. Because that's really the true test of something being successful or not, is if you are able to sell it and make a profit. Otherwise,
right,
you've squandered resources.
Right, but the movie gave us kind of like this crappy ending because we thought that was great. So is this movie like anti-capitalist? I don't know. It's almost like kind of saying that no, the eye of the artist is what should be maintained. That's kind of the impression I got by getting the crappy, no, you got to do this over again when you choose yes, I agree.
Yeah, and I thought it was kind of fun when they did redo it. They do replay everything rather quickly, but then there's something a little bit different about it, and that is that he has like this vague awareness of these things happening before. So when those instances come up, he knows the answer already. He has like deja vu related to like what's causing the screen to crash, or there was one or two other things like when he talks about in his game where he's showing them the demo and they have to choose between worshiping Pax or not. In the first time, he says what Pax the demon is, and the second time around, Colin already knows it because he also vaguely remembers from the first instance around. Did you catch that?
Yeah, the two artist type guys. Now, I don't know about your experience, but that was the only real time that the movie did that. The rest of the time, they didn't, the main character didn't go, man, I'm already knowing what's going to happen. It just did it that one time for me. Really focused on it. Maybe there were hints of it later on, but that was the main time that it happened.
Yeah, it gets so jumbled as you continue on that it's hard to know, because I had to repeat a bunch of stuff at the end, and it actually, spoilers here, jumping around to the end, I actually got, watch the end credits as a selection in the upper right corner like a bunch of times, but I kept selecting something down below that continued the story a bit more.
That's interesting. I never once got that. I kept going to this scene where he's opening up the safe, and depending on what I put in as the password is what was inside the safe.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, when I put toy in, then it opened up and he grabbed the rabbit. And then now that he was happy and he found the rabbit, he went along on the train ride with his mom. And then, he died. Is that the ending that you got, or is there a different ending?
Oh, man, there's more. There's so much more. All right. Let's try.
Well, the credits rolled. After that scene, the credits rolled. As soon as he died on the train, it cuts to him in the present, and he's sitting in the therapist's office, and he just falls over dead. And then the credits rolled.
Yeah, see, I think I got more. I think I got more than that. Let's see. Where does he die? Where does he die?
Was him dying triggered by the finding the rabbit?
I think so, yeah. Let's see. Dies at the office. And then I get back into it replays me the who's there. And it gives me the Netflix or Glyph option. And we go through that fun thing that we were talking about in the pre-show, where they break not only the 4th, 5th, and 6th walls, if that's even a thing, where he's aware of you interacting. Well, I mean, he plays as if he's aware of you controlling him via Netflix without knowing what Netflix is.
Okay, so what was the first time? Because the first time I chose the other thing. I didn't say Netflix. I chose the other option.
The crazy looking glyph thing that the the author of the Bandersnatch novel had painted when he went into madness and decapitated his wife.
Yeah, it's like a little, I don't know, like a little spaceship looking thing or a house looking thing or whatever.
Right, yeah. Well, so I went through that series a few times, and one of them, it actually let me choose between Pac or that symbol.
Yeah, one time it was Pac or that symbol.
And then at the safe, I got Pac or Pax, or Toy or Pac, I think.
I don't remember all my choices. I remember one was Pac, and he opened it up, and there's all this information about the program of people spying on him and stuff. And then the other time was the rabbit. I don't know. When did you kill the dad?
I kept trying to not kill the dad. I kept saying no to kill dad.
The first time I didn't kill the dad, but then the second time he just killed him anyway.
Yeah, it took a little while for mine to kill him. I think I said back off like 2 or 3 times, but it kept forcing the replay. And then it said pick up photo or kill dad. And then it did the mirrors let you move through time. He went in as a young man, and then he came out as a boy. He sees the dad take the rabbit in his dream and wakes up. And then he says, give me a sign. It's the Netflix or Glyph thing. And he says, I'm not in control. And it forces you back to kill dad or back off. I backed off again, and it forced a replay. And then it gave me the selection of get rabbit from dad or kill dad. And I said, well, get rabbit from dad. And that's when I got the safe to open with toy as the password.
So, okay. Well, I mean, it's interesting that we have all these different experiences. It seems like we have fairly similar. I mean, they only shot so many scenes, right? I mean, it's not like they're going to shoot some amazing scene and then not include it regardless of what you choose. They'll probably want to tell a somewhat similar story regardless of what you choose, but yeah, the details could be different each time you watch it. Now, the fun thing about Choose Your Own Adventures, I suppose, is the replayability. And I don't know, as much as I enjoyed this experience, and I really did, I had a smile on my face like through most of the thing, I don't know if I'd go back and watch it again. It feels like I got my experience out of it, because by the end, I'd already seen the end so many times, and had to like restart it, that I was like, okay, well, let's just go ahead and end then, because it didn't seem like it was telling me anything new. Like it didn't have anything more to say. Like it was an interesting kind of character piece, like kind of devolving into madness and talking about, are we really in control of our own actions, and this story about a boy being traumatized by the death of his mother. But I don't know that, like I missed some big thing. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I got the full experience after watching it one time.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. Like, this doesn't have a lot of replay like a second time. But the first time through, I was like, yeah, how long can we keep digging in? How deep can we get in this thing? Like, let's really milk the experience here. Though the one drawback that I felt was I didn't know how long it was going to be. And that was weird to me because I'm used to watching something and knowing, oh, okay, I gotta stay up for another hour, or there's 40 minutes left or something like that. But there was no indication of the length.
Yeah, now on the Netflix, on the screen, it says it's an hour and a half. But that's, of course, like an estimate, right? I mean, there's no way you could watch this movie and have it take like 2.5 hours, or maybe 90 minutes, or even like 5 minutes, right? I mean, you could make the wrong decision right off the bat and go, well, I'm done. That's good. Even though it's prodding you to, no, there's more. Go ahead and restart it. But you could say, I guess that's it. He made a crappy game. It's good enough for me.
If you don't make a selection, it forces you to, right? Or it does make one for you, like it defaults to one. So maybe that's what the 90 minutes is just all of the defaults playing.
I never let it go to a default. Did you?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, because I didn't like touch the button fast enough, and so it forced me into one or the other.
Would it be random, or was it always one side or the other?
I don't recall. I think it was the right-hand side, but I couldn't tell you if it would have been the left-hand side a different time or not.
I don't know.
I mean, you could get real weird and just like go through this and map out the whole thing, so you'd look all crazy, like he had all of the selection trees up on his wall there.
Yeah, you could be a meme, like on It's Always Sunny. Yeah. Charlie Day it up real good.
And program that path. So I've already seen a bunch of memes, by the way, related to this Bandersnatch. And they're like, choose Sugar Puffs or kill your dad. And it's
a tough call.
Yeah, it's a tough one. But it's a really interesting thing. And you talked about, did we miss anything major? I think we both saw it, but we haven't really talked about it yet in this episode, and that is Colin's LSD trip, where he wants to open Stefan's mind because he's in a hole, right? He's trapped in a hole. And I want to know what happened here for you. But I have most of what he was saying written out here. If you don't mind, if you'll indulge me a little.
You can go ahead. I just remember it being a really like kind of conspiratorial, they're controlling us kind of thing. And there's all these, secrets hidden in plain sight. Like he kind of talked about Pac-Man being program and control man. And then the kind of allegory of Pac-Man living in a maze, and he tries to escape the maze, but he only pops out the other side. And the ghosts that are chasing him are just figments of his imagination. And I thought that was all really clever and really fun. And then when it turned out that he really was part of a program and control operation, or was he? Maybe that was just a hallucination or a dream. I don't know, but it was really fun. But go ahead.
Well, you pretty much just said most of it, but here's what I've got written down. Time is a construct. Mirrors let you move through time. The government monitors people. They pay people to pretend to be your relatives, and they put drugs in your food, and they film you. These messages, there are messages in every game, like Pac-Man. Do you know what the PAC stands for? PAC, program and control. He's a program and control man. It's a metaphor. He thinks he's got free will, but really he's trapped in a maze, in a system. All he can do is consume. He's pursued by demons that are probably just in his own head. And even if he does manage to escape by slipping out one side of the maze, what happens? He comes right back in the other side. People think it's a happy game, and it's not. I've set you free. That's pretty much what I wrote down. There was a bunch more because he had like a good 3 or 4 minute little monologue there while tripping on acid. And then he goes out onto the ledge, and he's like, there are parallel paths, parallel times all happening. And so one of us is going to jump here.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I wanted to, when it's choose your own adventure, I typically want to see the most interesting thing that's going to happen. Like, I kind of waffled between what I would do and, well, I just want to see shit go down and see what this movie's going to throw at me. So I was really tempted to kill my dad in the very beginning and go, I wonder what'll happen if he just kills his dad right now. And then I wanted to know what would happen if he just turns him down. Turns out that was the right answer at the very beginning. But here, I wanted to see what would happen if the main character died. What are you going to do to me, movie? So I had him jump, even though I thought the correct answer was, well, if you really think this is true, then you should probably prove it to me and go ahead and jump. So I first had the main character jump, and then I had the acid tripping dude jump.
Because it forced you to replay, right?
Yeah, as soon as I had me jump, it was just like, well, they gave me a brief recap of another review scene talking about the game, and then restart where I choose the other guy.
Right. Yeah. And I chose the other guy right away because I'm like, I'm not fucking jumping. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, and that was my initial reaction was, are you kidding me? If you really believe this, you should probably prove it and jump your damn self. But sometimes I just want to see shit go down.
Right. And it was nasty too, right? Like when they show him jump and land, it's not
He
good.
splats pretty good. Yeah. He splats pretty good.
Yeah. So this is such a weird episode because I'm not sure how to really present this because I think it's an individualized experience or a very subjective thing.
Yeah, your results may vary. You might have had a really terrible experience. You might have had an amazing experience, but how do you really review it?
Yeah. So why don't I just walk you through what I did, and maybe then we can sort of see if there's any differences, and that might be interesting.
Okay, well, we'll see if it's interesting. Hopefully it is.
All right. So July 9th, 1984, kid wakes up, takes pills, dad locks the door and looks fishy. So you know there's something in there. It's like a foreshadowing. Selection between Sugar Puffs or Flakes. I chose Sugar Puffs. Then he gets on the bus. Selection between Thompson Twins or Now 2. I choose Now 2. And it plays Annie Lennox like lovers do. We go and meet Colin Rittman and David Brent type guy. And he talks about, he makes the famous, I haven't programmed that pathway yet when he's presenting his game. I accepted the initial job offer, and they then give you the review of saying it's designed by committee, terrible review. And so it makes me repeat. And this is where we notice that the characters are sort of aware of the things happening before. Then I refuse the job offer. And this is where Colin steps in and says, yeah, the lad's a craftsman, and this type of thing needs a bit of madness. And he'll work by himself at home to try to hit the Christmas season. And he needs to deliver the game, I think, by September 12, 1984. And then they go and talk to, I think, Dr. Haynes after that. And she says, do you want to talk about your mother? I said, no. And my wife was watching this with me, and she says, of course you'd pick no.
I picked yes at that point, by the way.
Well, it immediately brings it up again, and then I had to say yes. And
well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. Oh, well. And this is where we learn about the lost rabbit and how dad had taken it because it's something for babies. You know, he's like, my son is too old to have this thing. And so he hides the rabbit. And this is what causes the mom to be late and miss her train. And she says, are you coming or not? And I said, no. And then she misses the train and dies once it derails. And then Stefan blames himself for the mother's death and hates his dad for it. And the therapist then says that you can't change the past. And then he ends up going, I think, to a record store. And he can choose between Phaedra's Tangerine Dream or your Bermuda Triangle. I chose Bermuda Triangle. And then he also buys the Lives of Jerome Davies book. And he was the author of the Bandersnatch book. He's the guy who they explained earlier who had gone mad with these different selections, this choose your own adventure type style, trying to keep it all in his head, and ended up decapitating his wife and writing these weird symbols all over his house and started talking about mind control and conspiracy and things like that. And after that, I just got a series of this date and he's like working on the game, and then this date he's working on the game, and this date he's working on the game, showing the complicated pathways. And then his dad comes in and invites him for lunch. And I said no. And the dad said that he's worried about his son. He's been stuck there in weeks. And then the game glitches and it says, throw tea at computer or shout at dad. And I dumped the tea on the computer and it ended this thing for me and had to restart it. So it forced me to shout at dad.
Well, this is kind of a bummer. I mean, I chose Phaedra and then I immediately chose shout at dad. But because I didn't want, if you destroy the computer, he's not going to be able to finish the game in time. So that's unfortunate that it just gives you like an ending right away. It really kind of, instead of giving you this branching narrative, it's giving you this right or wrong answer. That's kind of unfortunate. But I guess that's how a lot of choose your own adventures work, I suppose.
Yeah, and I actually did it 3 times. I wrote it down, selected twice. It forced the selection. Third time's a charm, and nope, didn't work. False choice. So it really is like that false dichotomy it's giving you here. It's giving the illusion of choice here. And so I said, fine, I'll fucking shout at dad. And he says, Dad, fuck off. And then they go to lunch, which is actually dad lies to him and is bringing him to see Dr. Haynes. But then he sees Colin up the street outside of the clinic. And so it says, would you like to follow Colin or go see Dr. Haynes? And I chose follow Colin. And that's where we get into you're lost, you're in a hole, you're in a fight within your own head. And he takes him up to his house and meets the wife and kid, gets him high, and then gives him LSD. And I said yes to take that. And that's where we get in the time as a construct situation. And Colin, I had him jump, and he makes a big splat.
Wow. So I picked Visit Dr. Haynes instead of Follow Colin the first time. But later on, they forced me to follow Colin. And then I got the acid thing and all that. But that was much later. So in between, when I said visit Dr. Haynes, he's in there sitting there, Dr. Haynes, and he's like nervous. And so I got the option to like bite your nails or whatever. And I picked bite your nails, and he goes to like bite his fingernails or his entire fingers. Then he like stops and controls himself. And then she gives him some pills, and then he's at home, and you get a choice to either take the pills or flush the pills. And I said, flush the pills. And then he's sitting at the computer, and then he's frustrated again. And the option was like to hit the desk or do something else. And I said, hit the desk. And yeah, then there's just a whole bunch of stuff inside his room. I forget who he was talking to, but did you get the scene where he's talking about if you're just a puppet, and you don't have free will, so why not commit murder anyway? Maybe he's just hallucinating it with the writer of the book, or like a demon or something.
That was, I think, some lady on a TV talking.
Okay. Because I get that at that point.
Yeah, and she was saying things like, yeah, if you're not in control, you might as well just commit murder.
Right. Which is ridiculous. I mean, just because you're not in control, I mean, that doesn't mean you should go out and kill people.
No, yeah, I think that would be bad.
I still think it's bad, even if it's not your fault. You still probably shouldn't go around just murdering people.
So after you were forced to go back and have Colin jump, did it then take you to Dr. Haynes, and he's talking to her about vivid dreams and weird things like he's not in control? Because that's what happened to me after Colin jumped. And he's telling her it's like someone's making decisions for me, like what to have for breakfast, what to listen to, whether to shout at my dad.
Yeah, see, in between, after he jumps, he goes back home, and Colin's now dead, and I get the option to pick up the family photo. And then when he picks up the photo, he's looking at that. Then he's talking to the computer, and I pick the Netflix, and then he has the whole thing where he's talking about, what's Netflix and that sort of thing. And then he goes to his therapist again, and he tries to explain to her that he's being controlled by this entertainment program from the future. And she's like, well, let's see if that's true or not.
Right, because this is boring. Like, why would anyone be entertained by this?
Right, exactly. Okay, so you got the exact same scene?
Yeah. Well, I thought she was talking about our show, but she was talking about the movie. And it says, do you want to add some action to this? And it says, you can select yes or fuck yeah.
I picked fuck yeah.
Yeah, me too. Okay. I wonder what would happen if we'd selected yes, because it ends up being he throws a tea in her face and starts knocking shit down, and then gets into a fight with her, and it says leap through the window or fight her. And I said to fight her.
Me too. And then they had a kung fu fight, and then his dad breaks into the room, and they get into a kung fu fight, and then it was like kick him in the balls or give him a karate chop, and I said kick him in the balls.
Oh, I said karate chop. All right, so another difference, another divergence here.
But that still led to the end of the movie for me, right there.
Yeah, so right after that, I did the karate chop, and then it gave me the programming control, and I believe that was the only option. And then it opens up the safe, or the bottom of the cabinet. You see the paperwork, the files about the programming control study. There's a dossier on his life. There's recordings of his sessions with Dr. Haynes. There's video of him in a staged, like a set, which is resembling his bedroom, and the whole rabbit missing and his mother. And as if it was a totally concocted thing that they were, I guess when he was younger, they would have been experimenting on him to make him believe that was really happening, to maybe see what the effects of feeling the guilt of a parent's death would have on a child.
Right. So like either his mom isn't dead, or is like some actor or something like that.
Right. Because did you also see the dad drugging his little treats, his little cookies?
I don't remember that. No.
And then blindfolding the son?
Was this during a flashback? Yeah,
this is when the programming control kind of thing is like sort of explaining what happened to him when he was younger.
Okay. Well, I remember that bit, but maybe I missed that part exactly.
Yeah, and then the dad finds him in the room there in present time, 1984 time, and says, you weren't supposed to know. And then it shows him killing his dad in his dream, but then waking up. And then he gets into this, give me a sign. And it gives me on the screen a selection between PACS or Glyph. And later on, that same selection screen is Netflix or the Glyph.
Yeah, I picked PAX, and then later on there was a port where I had to put in a code.
Right. Yeah.
So I did that, but I don't know. It doesn't sound like I missed anything. Sounds like just the story was a little bit different in order.
slightly different order. Did you have him calling Dr. Haynes? Well, yeah, that was what the number was for, right? That was calling the office and talking to the secretary. And she's like, yeah, she's out of town. And Stefan says, well, I killed my dad and I'm going to kill her next and fuck off.
Yeah, I got that scene.
And then you saw the review of the game, the finished game, while he's like in prison.
Yes, I think I did. Yeah.
Okay, that was the final ending for me. So it didn't end when he died for me.
What?
It ended in the prison for me.
Huh. So did you restart after he died?
Let's check my notes. So I have him dying before the Netflix stuff, actually. Yeah, so after I said no to killing the dad a couple of times, and then he gets the toy, and he flashes back to see his dad taking it from under the bed, and and then the mom's like, I've missed the 8:30, I'll have to take the 8:45. Are you coming? I said yes this time. And then Stefan died in the office.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get the who's there, and it gave me the selection between Netflix or Glyph. And then I got the whole Netflix. I'm watching you on Netflix. I make decisions for you. And he says, so what the fuck is Netflix?
So did you see a scene where he's on the train as a kid?
Yes.
And then he just wakes up and then he's in his room again?
No, he dies at the office.
At the office, and then he's just alive in his room again?
Yeah, so as if he had woken up. So like as if he died in his dream or something.
Okay. Well, based on what you actually watch, it sure seems to change the meaning around a bit then. Because in my version of the movie, he actually just does die, and that's it, and that's the end of the movie.
And it rolls credits, huh?
Yeah. But if your time, he just dies, and it's a dream where he dies, and then he dies, and then the movie ends and he's in prison. Huh. Because, yeah, when I went, I think I had him go to prison at one point, but then I just had to restart.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Interesting.
Interesting. A little bit different meaning based on what you choose. That's good.
Yeah, different meanings. You see a slightly different angle depending on when and where you see the stuff. That's kind of intriguing, actually. I think they took a lot of effort into planning this out.
Definitely. I'm sure they had some interesting long night discussion sessions when they were writing this thing.
Tripping balls on the LSD themselves, probably.
So at one point, he just starts fighting her.
Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah.
So during the Netflix thing, and I got that presented to me a few times, and I picked the Glyph a few times, and then I finally said, fine, I'll select Netflix, and he does the whole thing, and what the fuck is Netflix? And it gave me a selection of tell him more or try to explain, which those seem equivalent to me. So I said, tell him more, and it says it's a streaming platform. And then it says a selection between tell him more or stop the conversation. I said, stop the conversation. And that's when he went to Dr. Haynes and told her about Netflix, and then they get into the fight.
Yeah, that's, I think, exactly the same experience I had. So unfortunately, there's no difference there. Those are the same choices I made.
Okay. Interesting.
But yeah, when he picks Netflix, and then his dad walks in, and he's like, what's going on? What's wrong? And he's like, you won't believe me. He's like, well, just try me. He's like, I think I'm being controlled from the future. And he's like, okay, let's go see the doctor. That's a good idea. Which I think if anybody truly believed that, I think it would be a good time to go see a doctor.
Right.
Regardless of whether or not, a therapist is really going to be able to help you. But, still, if you believe this truly, you might want to go talk to somebody about it.
Yeah. And then she made the point that it was actually a good thing that he was aware of that these things were happening to him that were weird, and that he was cognizant enough to go and talk about it. Like he knew it was weird. Right. So he was like aware of the delusions, and he knew they were delusions. And a couple of friends of mine, two different people actually, have experienced this type of thing. Not the whole choose your own adventure, being in a Netflix thing, being controlled.
You don't know that.
Possibly. But in conversations with them after having psychotic break type episodes like this, they've told me that there was a point where they were aware that what was happening was crazy. Like that that they were doing things they knew they shouldn't do, but they were not able to prevent them.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't had that experience myself. I do have a friend that did suffer from a psychotic break, and a lot of interesting things happened to him at the time. But I don't know how real or surreal it all appears at the time. So I don't know, man. I'm glad he's better now. So
yeah, I agree. I think I know who we're talking about mutually here.
Mm-hmm.
So, Robert.
Yeah, Daniel.
I don't know how interesting of an episode this has been, but maybe we should fight.
Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah, you motherfucker. So this episode is not safe for work. This episode of The Last Nighters, which can be found on The Launchpad Media at thelaunchpadmedia.com. Robert, I'm not sure how to do a summary and review here and how to give this a rating, but why don't you jump first and just prove to me that you've expanded my mind?
Well, no pressure. Okay. Well, how would I summarize this film?
In your mind's eye.
It's an ambitious project, and I think it mostly succeeds. It depends somewhat on the choices people make to get, I think, the best possible experience. But it seems like no matter what you get, it's going to kind of, show you essentially the story. But, I don't know if this kind of thing is going to take off. I really don't see it being, a huge thing. I think I'm more interested in like a real crafted narrative by some, really talented person that's going to tell me an amazing story. But at the same time, I think there's a room for this. There's definitely room in the market for something like this. And this kind of is a proof of concept sort of experience right now. I mean, because why not? I mean, maybe we'll, in the future, we'll have like these VR experiences where you'll be holodecking it and living as whatever story in the middle of some story. Why not? But, is this like my favorite thing in the world? Would I go back to it? I don't think so. I think I got out of it all that I was going to get out of it. Now, in terms of the quality, like the acting and the cinematography and all that and the writing, I thought it was all very excellent. Like, I know Black Mirror is an excellent television show. It's known for its high quality. And I don't think that this betrays that at all. I think this is an experiment that is pretty much all successful. I can't really point to any one fault that we would say, not recommend it. I would absolutely recommend it. If you got Netflix, check it out. It's I don't know. Daniel had the experience of watching it with his wife. So I don't know exactly who was making the decision each time. Probably, I'm guessing Daniel, but I had the experience of making the decision every time. And it kind of gave me a little bit of a thrill, of a little bit of control to see what was going to happen when I did this or that. And that's, it's a little bit more than you get out of your average movie. You never get control. It's always a completely passive experience. So, that's something different and fun. And I'm glad it exists, and I recommend it. If I was going to give it a number, I'd say it's like a 7.7. I don't know. It's hard. It's a hard one to just give a number to. I think it's just a recommend or not recommend, and I would definitely recommend this movie.
At least a one-time playthrough, right? Not a lot of replayability, even
Not
though
for me. Maybe for somebody would be like totally into it and want to see every single little last thing.
Every little rabbit trail, yeah.
I think I got the gist of it, and maybe someday in the future somebody will make some magnum opus that's like 10 hours long with like a million different choose your own plot point, splits. But man, that would be an amazing time sink. I mean, I don't know from an economy standpoint if you want to be a director where you film, 75% of your film isn't going to be seen. You know what I mean? Like, you're just going to go through it. And anyway, go for it, Daniel. Give me your take.
All right. Well, despite all my rage, I am just a rat in a cage, which I think is the whole point, the whole metaphor of this presentation, this movie. And that's what the Pac-Man is all about. And that's like the story within the story, telling you that you are controlling this guy and he has the illusion of choice, just like you sort of have the illusion of choice in making some of the selections, because in many instances it forces you back and it funnels you into where it wants you to go, but it still gives you like a slightly different pathway to get there. And I suppose that is part of the genius of it. Like, you kind of have to have some touch points where you can only shoot so many scenes, like you were saying, and you have to get the story out there, or whatever the story, the bare bones of it, or the outline of it are. Like, you have to have the LSD scene on the roof. You have to have him fight Dr. Haynes. You have to have him choose between the series. Well, that didn't need to happen. And you've got to have him like kill his dad at the end. But how that kind of plays out is sort of up to you in a way. And I think that is a really unique presentation, and it does add another element. It breaks a couple of additional barriers, not just the fourth wall, but perhaps the fifth and maybe the sixth, because not only is he talking to you, but then he's responding to the selections you've made, and then he's aware that you're making selections for him, right? So wouldn't that be 6? Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. Yeah, I'd leave that to the experts.
Right. I mean, it's not like there's that many dimensions, I suppose. But anyway, I think that it was a good experience, but I also found it a little bit too, like, it gave me more control over what was happening. but it gave me less control in, all right, how long do I need to devote to this thing? How long am I going to be tied up? How many times am I going to have to replay and rewatch these certain portions until I get it right? And that part I didn't like. I didn't like not feeling that level of control, knowing that, hey, if I start watching this at 8 o'clock, am I going to be done by 10 or not? And so that was kind of hanging over me while I was doing this. And in fact, my wife started watching this with me, and her and I made some of the decisions together. And then she just kind of gave up, and it was me making the decisions. Hence do you want to talk about your mother? No. And she says, well, of course she'd pick that. But then she fell asleep. She went to bed about halfway through. So she doesn't even know how this thing ends. She's learning right now as we speak, because she's watching this on the live stream, which is available for our Patreon supporters at the $10 a month level or higher. And you can get access to that, like my wife has, at lastnighters.com/Patreon. But I think overall, like you said, it's really well done. The environment, the cinematography, the acting is all really, really great. And I think that they did a fine job here. So you know the number. It's 20541. That's my rating for this one. Now, Robert, I think we're going to do another choose your own adventure situation at the end here. The next episode, shall we choose Smallfoot or Starship Troopers?
Oh, not a random other Netflix movie, but Star Trek Troopers. Well, I'm more prepared for Smallfoot. I think Starship Troopers, we had it timed out for a certain thing. Now, has that event happened?
I think it's in the works. It's happening. It's happening, people.
It's happening.
But yeah, I think we're going to force you to select Smallfoot for next week on The Last Nighters.
So if I pick Starship Troopers, you're going to restart and force me to pick again?
Yeah, you're going to dead end in this novel and need to go back to page 37 and re-select.
Damn it. Okay, Smallfoot.
All right, next week, Smallfoot with our special guest, Rocky Fahrenberg on The Last Nighters. This show has been episode 54. You can find it at lastnighters.com/54. Thank you guys very much, and good night from last night.